Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni wanji, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jed Lee, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so delighted and so very honored that you join us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Stitcher Radio, wherever you find your podcast. We are really excited. We have a couple of friends coming back to the podcast. First, coming to us from the beautiful state of Florida, Norma Roth. Hey, Norma, how are you?
I'm good, Jed Lee. Thank you for having me on the show again.
I'm delighted to have you on. We are also delighted to have your daughter on the show, my buddy. Coming to us from L.A., Shayna Penn. Hey, Shayna.
Hi, it's so nice to see you again.
So nice. Shayna and I had such a lovely time at the Orange County Children's Book Festival. We got to hang out for the afternoon. It was a lot of fun, and it was really fun introducing families at that event to Lovable Lucy, the book series that both you and your mom have created. So, Mom, tell us a little bit about the latest in the series. It's called You're So Big. Is that right?
It is. It's called Little Lovable Lucy, You're So Big. So we take Lucy, who's still a puppy, but as you know, puppies grow bigger. And Lucy has acclimated to her family, and her family has acclimated to her. And now that she's big enough, she's ready to explore and play in her neighborhood with her family. But she doesn't know how to walk on a leash, and she doesn't have any of those dog safety skills, right? Sit, stay. And so the family has to figure out how to teach these things to Lucy and to encourage her when she gets frustrated. And then once Lucy has learned all of these things, she gets to go and explore. So it's a really cute, sweet book. And again, we're always focusing on like the kindness and the positive reinforcement and teamwork, which is really important when you are training a puppy at home.
Yeah. Shayna, this reminds me so much of my daughter when she was 4. Her Christmas present was a beautiful puppy, a border collie. We didn't know what a border collie was. We didn't realize how much energy it had. But I remember my daughter was so determined to be the best master, that was the word that she used, the best dog master she could be. And when we went to the training and to help get the dog socialized, and the dog would always misbehave. But my daughter was so intent, and that whole thing is that wanting to teach the dog the things that your mom was talking about, that being kind and being lovable and being a great neighbor, being a great friend. So many memories. Just this conversation is bringing back of me and my daughter so many years ago.
I love that. Something we definitely worked a lot with over the years with Lucy, and we've noticed with other families and their pets over the years, you can't change your dog's personality. So if your dog is rambunctious, how do you make that part of how you train your dog? Like trying to get rid of a dog that always has the zoomies is maybe not something you can ever overcome, but how they have the zoomies is something you can work with. So in our second book, there's a portion at the beginning of the book where Lucy is learning to walk on a leash. And over the course of this 2-page spread, we show how tricky it is for her, and mommy's encouragement and her neighbor's encouragement helps her keep that determination going. And then, of course, everyone helps her celebrate at the end by cheering for her when she does it. Those are all things we do for kids who are maybe they're potty training, maybe they're scared to learn how to ride a bicycle. And it's just like how puppies in real life are learning different skills and what we would call tricks.
Yeah. Norma, remind us, what was the inspiration for the Little Lovable Lucy series?
My kids, I was a former journalist for a Gannett newspaper in New Jersey where I lived, and also a medical blogger for South Jersey Top Docs. And during that writing career, my kids had said to me that they wanted me to write a book about our Lovable Lucy because she was a really sweet dog. She recently passed away in December. And because she was so well behaved, she came everywhere with us and had a lot of adventures in her life. And my kids thought that it would make a really cute topic for a book, and who doesn't love a dog? And I didn't want to do it. But then when the pandemic hit, Shayna really pushed the issue and needed a happy project. And so we collaborated together and came up with a bunch of manuscripts and decided to write this children's book series, but use Lucy as the voice of the story. And it's worked really well because a lot of the kids who are our audience really relate to Lucy and her feelings and everything that she's experiencing in each story. So it's really sweet.
Yeah, I bet. Hey, before I want to get into kids relating to Lucy and all that, but I'm really curious. How was it for you, Norma, to go from this position where you're writing, but you're writing newspapers and you're writing blogs for doctors, you're not writing kids' books about lovable little dogs, and how difficult was it for you to make that transition?
I mean, I think some people would think that could be a really easy transition, but it was not for me. And because we decided to make Lucy the voice of the story, in my mind, this is a dog with very simple thinking. And I just thought, how am I going to do this? Or we are going to do this. And so once we decided that Lucy would be the voice, we felt that we should still keep the language really simple for kids to understand. And so I'm really good at some of the alliterations in it, and like Lucy nibbles on some kibbles and Buddy doesn't want to get muddy, and coming up with those things. And Shayna's really good with some of the other expressions in the book.
I'm
Again,
just giggling
using
over
this,
here.
Right? Using like
well,
that
because I
simple
would come
language.
out. Well, this is just a little throwback story. I moved in with my parents during the COVID sort of lockdown era because I started it in New York. And after 10 weeks of not really leaving my apartment, I was like, I need to go somewhere that's less of a sardine can. So I went to stay with my parents. And once Mom and I decided to work on the books, I'd come out and she'd just be laying on the floor staring at Lucy. And I was like, I know she's a cute dog, but what are you doing? And she goes, I'm just trying to get in her head to write the books. It's the funniest. She's just sitting there like, I'm just trying to get inside Lucy's head. And I was like, she has a one-track mind. She thinks about the same 5 things all day, just like kids. Snacks, sleeping, who she loves, who loves her, and who's going to scratch her belly. And like once Mom really figured out her voice, then it became shaping the story. But it was really funny to watch the process from a very close perspective.
I did, and I had written many years ago, I had written another book interweaving stories of women and their families affected by breast cancer and the medical community who treats them. And again, like that writing kind of came a bit natural, but it was figuring out how to tell the voice, like what the tone of the stories were going to be. And once you get it, it takes, for me at least, it took a while to get that also, but once it clicks, the writing just flows. And
once we sort of sorted out our formula, we could rinse and repeat it but the upfront work of what's the story, what's the framing, what's the curriculum, that's the part that takes us longer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I imagine, for a lot of folks, it is that, okay, we have this idea, we have this dog, so what are you going to write about?
We could write about so many things, and we were like, where should we start? And so I just thought back to The Sound of Music. We have to start at the very beginning. And so we just thought we'll start at the very beginning of a family welcoming a dog, a puppy, into their home. And what is that experience like for everybody? And then taking the dog from puppy to bigger puppy to full grown, and then all of those experiences. So in the third book, which is coming out sometime this summer, Lucy will be a full-grown small dog, and the family will be entertaining their neighborhood friends in a backyard party. And it's just so, and then the scenarios and the books, the book lines, the storylines will go from there. So
Wonderful.
yeah.
Well, Shayna, I understand that Lovable Lucy, You're So Big is a little bit notorious in at least one state. Can you tell us a little bit about that? The book has been banned, I understand.
It did get banned. So we present a world that just exists. All of Lucy's family and neighbors are people that we have had the pleasure of being inspired by in the world. For example, we in the second book have these twin little mommies and their kids inspired by my childhood babysitters who were twins and we're still friends with to this day. We've known them for over 20 years. And we were inspired by a lot of the friends I've made, especially having been in the arts community. That's a very welcoming community to people who are members of the LGBTQIA plus community. And in Lucy's neighborhood, we showed different little vignettes of who her neighbors were. And we did depict two men who have a dog and a sign that says, "Go Lucy, go," cheering for her with her walking on a leash experience. And behind them is a rainbow mailbox. So kind of like in the first book where we don't state who has what color skin or who has what color this or that other than sharing brown hair or brown eyes or things like that. Our book just says my neighbors cheer. It wasn't something to draw attention to a specific community. We also depict a service dog in that page. So we're just showing different things that kids will see when they go out into the world. And as part of our mission with this book series, we were collaborating to donate books to students in underprivileged districts throughout Florida. And unfortunately, because of some of the legislation that exists, we were not able to have our second book donated to the school because of that rainbow mailbox. And it has been part of our creative process, the decision making of what do we cater to when we create a book series? Do we make compromises and how and where? And we're very fortunate that most of our readers appreciate the way we present the world. And we recognize that not everyone will, but our mission is to make sure that we can just enjoy an audience that enjoys our books.
Yeah. Well, to be honest with you, when you showed me the quote unquote the offending picture, Norma, it was two guys, and I, based on what you hear in the news, I could kind of guess. But to be honest with you, if I was reading Little Lovable Lucy and I came across that spread, if I had an issue with it, it wouldn't come up with my 4-year-old, my 5-year-old. It would just be, here are the neighbors. There's a couple guys live at that house. They chose to paint their mailbox in a rainbow color. Again, I don't want to pass judgment. We don't get political here on this show, but I don't know, Norma. The world is a little bit different. It seems, maybe you agree with me, or maybe not, but it seems like a lot of people go out of their way to look to be offended these days, or to look to find something that to.
I do agree, and I think of also somebody reached out to me recently about it because they have a friend who's writing about banned and censored books in Florida, and they knew that Little Lovable Lucy, You're So Big had been censored at a few school districts, and so they wanted some information from me about it. And I said, what's upsetting to me is that out of the 29 illustrated pictures that are in this book, and they're beautiful, there's like a little 1.5-inch square in a double page spread that some people are focusing on. And that to me is very unfortunate. And the other unfortunate part is that We live in a world where there's all kinds of people, and we all look different, and we all have different faiths, and we all should just be living harmoniously. And for the most part, here where I live in St. Pete, it is a very welcoming community to people of all kinds. And so for me, like what I see every day out on the street is very different, maybe what other people in some other areas see and experience. And so for me, I think living in such a wonderful place like St. Pete, for people to be criticizing our book because of that is, for me personally, it's really hurtful, and really unfortunate that this is what the focus is, as opposed to what a great tool our book is for empowering children who are learning new skills and maybe becoming frustrated in learning that new skill, as Shayna said, whether it's riding a bicycle, whether they're playing in a soccer league for the first time and they're trying to learn, the kicking motions and the running and things like that, even tying shoelaces for kids. I mean, this book is a great tool showing what it's like for kids to learn something new, the frustrations they may or may not experience, but also how a family can work together to encourage a child to keep going. And even if you don't get it the first time, try again the third time, and, go back next week again if you haven't mastered it yet. We have been told, our book really helps empower kids. Mm-hmm. And that's what we like to focus on.
Yeah. Well, I know, Shayna, one of the things that, one of the memories I had of being out at the Orange County Children's Book Festival with you is the smiles as you were sharing the book with the kids who came up to our table. And the kids just fell in love with the illustrations, and they were seeing the dog, and they were seeing the friendship, and they were seeing the, trying to learn something. They weren't saying anything political, which was nice.
Exactly.
And so do you think there's a way, because I'm almost 100. Your mom's a lot younger than I am, but we're both of a different generation than you. Do you think we're going to be able to come to a place where we can learn as a society, as a community, to disagree in an agreeable way? It's like, okay, yeah, we don't all look at the world from the same perspective. We have different points of view. We have different experiences. And that's okay. And we can still live in the world and not agree. And we can have a conversation, and it can be civil. And I can say to you, I like vanilla, and you can tell me you like strawberry. And we can still sit down and have those ice creams together.
That ice cream analogy is a really interesting one, because what I'm seeing with a lot of the book ban is, instead of asking people what's your favorite ice cream flavor from all these different varieties, we're saying, is your favorite ice cream flavor vanilla or chocolate or strawberry? We're not offering other flavors by banning books. So we're kind of limiting what you get to make your sundae out of now, instead of saying choose your own adventure. Mm-hmm. I think, first of all, thank you 100 times over for letting me crash your tent at the book fair. It was so nice to see you in person. And to meet all the other authors who were there that day, and to see the kids and families. It was really inspiring to see so many families out for the love of books for their children, because that did give me hope that books aren't dying as quickly as we think they are, especially the printed book format. They're such a valuable tool for kids to have as like a safety blanket. And without getting too far into my own political ideation, just to define things, we are word people. The definition of the word woke, which is a very big trigger word these days, is a state of being awake. We don't close our eyes when people walk by that are different from us. I live in a city in America that has a huge homeless issue. I don't close my eyes when I walk by people. I acknowledge them so long as I feel safe to acknowledge them, if there's, not a danger element there. But, we all have to, make sure that if we would extend a handshake to one person, we have to think about why we might not extend it to other people. And our book really shows that dogs don't have biases and humans really don't either. Kids look at our books and they relate to a dog. Kids don't walk around pretending to be puppies all the time, but with our books they can, to learn lessons. So we really choose to inspire the creative side of life, because imagination is something that children have unlimited means to, and we want to give kids the biggest possible foundation for what it means to take these lessons away from Lovable Lucy and the world that we've created. And while I don't know what change will look like, I am hopeful that the response we see outweighing, the positive outweighing the negative so far is really comforting for us.
Yeah. Norma, after a career of writing for news outlets, writing for medical outlets, did you ever think that you would get banned writing a kid's book?
No, however, yes, because we had just finalized the whole the formatting with the illustrations and the text and everything, and we're sending it to the printer last June or July, whenever it was. And while this book was at the printer getting printed, the legislation in Florida passed. And I knew at that point in time that the book would probably be censored in the state that, here where I reside. So
it wasn't the shock to us that it got banned. It was kind of like we submitted the book to get donated to the schools and kind of went, let's see if it makes it or not. And then we kind of had to laugh about it when it didn't make it
and cry
to the final cut.
Yeah. It was not unexpected, but it's very disappointing. Yeah. It's really unfortunate that this is happening. So, but as Shayna said, we really try and focus on the positives and the wonderful world that this fictional world that Lucy creates for these kids and the families and the educators who are reading it, and that they can be a part and enjoy Lucy's fictional world and all the joy and the love that's in it.
Yeah. So I understand book 3 is on the way. Shayna, 15, 16, 17 books? What do you think? What's the long-term plan?
We definitely we've thought about all the different ways that the book series can go, and we have ideas for as we can grow the series. If we grow it for Lucy, what do we do when kids are able to read the next level up and the level up from that? We've thought about all the different ways we could expand upwards, sideways, and outwards. And for Lovable Lucy's journey within her series, we would love to continue expanding her world, exploring what each friendship looks like with the different dogs and humans in her neighborhood, what adventures they can go on in and outside of the neighborhood. And just to tease a little bit, for example, we can expand to holidays. We celebrate Hanukkah in our household, but we acknowledge that Christmas and Kwanzaa are very popular, and everyone celebrates those as well. So we'll be celebrating all 3 holidays with a book later this fall, winter. And we look forward to finding new ways of packaging together the metaphor of what Lucy experiences and what kids experience. And those things are endless. Kids can have so many different types of social encounters on a playground, for example, and dogs do at dog parks and playgrounds as well. So even when you think about that concept as well, we could come up with 5 different stories, and we'll sort of continue to brainstorm. But we have about 10 book titles that we've prepped for the series to begin, and we're really hoping to continue expanding from there.
Wonderful. Norma, one last question. I'm not going to ask you to choose which aspect of your career you love more, but have you fallen in love with writing kids' books?
Yes, it's so joyful. And I've been doing author presentations at early childhood learning centers and at elementary schools. And it is so much fun to read these books to the kids, and they're just like, oh my God, that's the most adorable doggy I've ever seen. Or that illustration is so beautiful. Can I see it again? And that's usually with the younger kids. And then with the older kids, I share, we do these Q&As, and then I will also share videos of real life Lucy. So I share videos of the illustration process and the character development. And then I show the videos of real life Lovable Lucy so that they can make that connection. And it is just wonderful to see the enthusiasm. And if there's anything I think that when I walk away from it, it's that a lot of the times when I'm at these schools, especially at the early childhood learning centers, it's the first time these kids have met a real life author. And so that experience for them, having the author read the book that they wrote and not their teacher, is a really impactful experience. And I hope that it inspires them to continue reading, and then the reading and the writing. And so by far, I would say the children's book series is really it's so much fun and very enjoyable.
We're sorry in advance to all the parents who field questions about getting dogs after our presentations.
Yeah, it's really neat because it's a different kind of creative process. Mm-hmm. When I did my book Pink Ribbon Journey about the women with breast cancer and their families, it was like a photojournalism mm-hmm. style coffee book. And I worked with a photographer, and that was a really neat experience. But working with an illustrator takes it to a whole different level. To see the illustrator take your words and bring it to life, and the different ways that Adwa Hernandez, a huge shout out to Adwa for bringing Lucy and her family to life in ways we never thought imaginable. But the way that she shows all of the different emotions that Lucy experiences, and the expressions are so akin to like what a kid's facial expression also in a similar situation, is really remarkable and wonderful. And so hands down, yes, children's book wins, like way better than anything else I've done in my long career right now.
Well, that's awesome. And I know, Shayna, that you handle a lot of the marketing and things like that. So why don't I ask you where we can go to find out more about Little Lovable Lucy, find out more about you and your mom and all the great things that are going to be coming from you guys.
There are so many ways to find us. You can go to lovablelucyseries.com to find our story, more about our books. You can get sneak previews of the books. You can also purchase our books through barnesandnoble.com and on amazon.com.
Wonderful.
Right.
Wonderful.
And then also one little note.
Mm-hmm.
So we are getting into more and more Barnes and Noble stores in New Jersey, California, and Florida. But listeners should know that they can go into any Barnes and Noble store and request the book, and the store can order it, and they can either pick it up in the store or the store will ship it to them. So it's technically available, even though it might not be on the shelf at every Barnes and Noble store across the country. It can be ordered at every store across the country.
And I'm imagining that most of your indie and small, local bookshops can also order it for you. So just pick up the phone before you make the trip and say, I just heard Norma and Shayna on the Reading with Your Kids podcast, and I just want to get Little Lovable Lucy, You're So Big. Can you order it for me? I bet it'll be there in like 2 days.
Yes, it's definitely available. And I will say that these are really good summer reading books to add for parents or parents who have kids, I would say ages 4 to 7, if they want to keep them reading over the summer. These books will definitely motivate them. There's one thing I've learned in doing this is that the kids want to keep rereading the Lovable Lucy book, whether it's during the day or a bedtime story, but it's definitely something to think about for the summer reading list.
Wonderful. We've had a wonderful, wonderful time talking to our friends, the authors of the Little Lovable Lucy series. The latest book is called You're So Big. Our guests have been Norma Roth and Shayna Penn. My friends, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you,
for
Jeffrey.
having us back.
It's been fun.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast and will join us for the next exciting episode. If you want to make sure you don't miss a second of the show, please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Stitch Radio, wherever you get your podcasts. And also be sure to visit readingwithyourkids.com and download your copy of the Reading With Your Kids online magazine. It's free. It's available at readingwithyourkids.com. Just click on our blog. Before we go, I want to make sure that I give a big thank you to my team: Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Madison Dairies, Soji Franklin, Monica Rivera Sosa, Ann O'Leary. I want to give a big thank you to my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me, and most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.